Hi, everybody. I'm Stacey Ho Richardson. For those of you who don't already know me, I'm Deputy Director in the Division of Clean Energy at the BPU. Just want to welcome you all to this orientation session. We're very excited to have new working group members in this meeting. The goal of today's session is to give you an overview of all the topics we think you would need to know before going before starting our work in the working group, and also before the March 31st EE committee meeting next week. We are going to provide an overview of energy efficiency and the energy efficiency transition in New Jersey, and sort of introduce you to the board and some of the partners that we're working with in this transition. And the whole goal is to provide you with a sense of what is your role going to be in the energy efficiency transition, both in the short term as we get ready for the implementation of new energy efficiency programs, and also in the longer term as the programs actually roll out and we continue to monitor them and improve them over time. So maybe next slide, please. Here's the agenda for today. We'll start off, I'll provide an overview of the Energy Master Plan. We'll first do introductions, but then we'll do the EMP, and then we'll go into, like I was saying, and we'll talk about energy efficiency, describe who the board is and what our role is, and the Clean Energy Program, and then spend a few moments on the transition, including what is happening, why is it happening, when is it happening, and then we'll conclude with talking about what is the role of the working groups within this context. So I think at this point, I'm going to, well, first I'll say again, just very excited to have you all on board. These are the equity and workforce new working group members that could have you all on at the same time. And we will have an opportunity to have the breakout of specific groups, so you'll get to know each other more and have conversations with each other following this meeting and next week's meeting. So this is just an introductory orientation session. So I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Crystal to do roll call.
Thanks, Stacey. I also just want to introduce myself. I think all of you received an email from me. I'm here to put a face to the name. So welcome, everyone. My name is Crystal Pruitt. I am the other deputy director here in the Division of Clean Energy, but I am tasked and charged with running the Office of Clean Energy Equity. And it is a new office as of last year. I'm very excited to be here and very excited to work with and engage with all of you as we look to make clean energy more accessible for all of our residents, especially some of our more vulnerable communities. So that being said, I want to start us off with a roll call. I'm going to be going down based on organization. So if you represent that organization, please unmute yourself, say hello and your name, and we'll just go through it that way. And as Stacey said, we will have opportunities, or you will be contacted by me as I schedule the subsequent breakouts, working groups. So there will be more opportunity to get to know each other more personally in the smaller groups. So that being said, do we have any participants that represent a state agency or organization?
Hi, Crystal, this is Mara Caraselli with the Division of Rate Council. Nice to be here today.
I think someone spoke. It sounded very far away.
That was Maura Caraselli at Rate Council.
Oh, it was Maura? Okay.
Hi, Maura. About that. Mara Caraselli with Rate Council.
All right. Hi, Maura. Anyone else representing a state agency or department?
Yes. Hi, good afternoon. This is Melissa Schonker from the Division of Aging Services in the Department of Human Services.
Anyone from the Supplier Diversity Development Council? American Association of Blacks in Energy? AARP?
Hi, it's Ev Liebman from AARP. Thanks for inviting us.
Environment New Jersey.
Hello, everybody. This is Doug O'Malley, Director with Environment New Jersey. Thrilled to be here.
Anyone from Natural Resource Defense Council? All right, Green Faith, NJ Bick.
Hi, good afternoon. It's Reverend Tuff. Thank you so much for inviting me.
NJPIRG.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emma Horst Martz. I'm an advocate with NJ PIRG. Thanks for having us.
EE Alliance of New Jersey.
Hi, everyone. This is Leanne Leiter, Director of Policy and Research at the Energy Efficiency Alliance of New Jersey. I'm honored to be a part of the conversation. Thank you.
Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnerships.
Hi, everyone. This is Erin Cosgrove with Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnerships. Excited to be here and thank you for the invitation.
New Jersey Builders Association.
Hi, this is Matthew Kaplan. I'm not with the New Jersey Builders Association, but they asked me to be here on their behalf.
You're their designee, right?
Yes.
Great. Isles.
Yes, hello, I'm Andre Thomas, Senior Training Manager for IO's Center for Energy and Environmental Training. Thanks for inviting us.
And NJ Council of County Vocational Tech Schools. And do we have any of our utilities on the line?
Good afternoon. Anne-Marie Prachos here for New Jersey Natural.
Hi, Maureen Minkelzwan from SJI.
Hey, Crystal. Pete Druckenmiller's here from South Jersey Gas.
This is Jeff Martin from Atlantic City Electric.
Good afternoon. Trish Cole from PHI.
Okay. Did I miss anyone?
I think I missed my opportunity during the tech schools thing. I'm Adam Rechtenwald, Supervisor of Career and Technical Ed from Middlesex County Vocational and Technical Schools.
Oh, thank you. Welcome.
And Maria Heitkamp from the Heldrick Center for Workforce Development at Rutgers University. I wasn't sure if you were counting us as a state agency of sorts, but happy to be here.
Happy to have you.
Jen Souter. I'm here from Rutgers Center for Green Building.
Hi, this is Jackie Traska, and I'm also here from the Rutgers Center for Green Building.
So that being said, welcome everyone. We're gonna get started.
Oh, Crystal, maybe we can also introduce TRC folks.
No.
And NGIT.
No. No, go ahead. Sorry. TRC.
Hi, this is Mary Beth Brenner with TRC.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Ebinger with TRC.
Hi, this is Vicki Dolan from the NJIT Center for Building Knowledge.
Hi, this is Tara Meyerdirk from the NJIT Center for Building Knowledge.
Okay. So I think we have everyone now. Everyone has got a chance to say hello. So we're gonna go ahead and get started and kind of give you an overview of what we're trying to accomplish with the energy efficiency transition and the roles the working groups are going to play and the role that you ultimately will all play. So take it away.
Thanks, Crystal. And I want to say that after each of these sections, please feel free, we're going to have an opportunity for questions. So please feel free to jump in. As many of you are aware, New Jersey has an energy master plan. And we have a state goal of reaching 100% clean energy by 2050. And here are the 7 strategies of the EMP. The ones that are highlighted have sort of more bearing on the work that we're going to be doing with energy efficiency. So next slide, please. When we're talking about the EMP, because this is sort of our, the framework that we're working on at the highest level in the state. This EMP was released in January of 2020. As I mentioned, that we have the statewide goal of 100% clean energy by 2050, as well as reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 80% relative to 2006 levels by 2050. So there's the 80 by 50 goal, and doing all of this in a way that continues to build a stronger and fairer New Jersey. This slide shows the sectors, different sectors that contribute to greenhouse gas emissions in the state. And transportation is the leading sector, but right behind that is the building sector. If you combine residential, commercial, and industrial sectors, is the second largest source of emissions in New Jersey. So this makes the work that we're doing in buildings very significant, and that's where we're focused on reducing energy consumption in buildings to the extent we can. Here's some of the priorities in the building sector. We will require immediate action in all sectors, but as I mentioned, building sector is one of the top sectors to focus on, and we can do so by increasing energy efficiency, improving buildings' thermal envelopes, and decarbonizing buildings. The Global Warming Response Act report supports these goals. Any questions on the EMP that I could try to answer? And if not, we will move on to EE. And again, the reason we wanted to just talk about EE is I know a lot of you really work in this space already, but some of us don't. So we just want to make sure that everyone has sort of the basic information about what we're working on. And with that, I'll turn it over to Elizabeth at TRC.
Great. Thank you, Stacy. I'm Elizabeth Ebinger, as Stacy said, with TRC, and I manage the Clean Energy Program's outreach team. So either I or a member of my team have likely crossed paths with you at community events or organizational meetings. And for the rest of you, it's nice to meet you. Our outreach is focused on energy efficiency. So I have the role today to make sure that we are all starting this conversation with the same understanding, first of all, of what is energy efficiency and what is the Clean Energy Program doing now and has done in the past. Some of you know this information very well, and for others, it's pretty new. What we have listed here is the process to address climate change. Education is the first step. It's really what we're doing here as part of the larger education picture. We're learning what's been done and what we're tasked to do for the future. Many of you know when it comes to recycling our waste that there's the reduce, reuse, recycle. Well, the next two steps here, the energy conservation and energy efficiency, are that reduction. One of these first steps that we need to do after education is reducing the current energy consumption. Reducing the consumption, it's the behavioral change. It's turning off lights when you leave a room, not idling your car, those behavioral decisions. The energy efficiency is more of the mechanical changes. It's the choice to use an energy efficient light bulb or smart thermostat that can cycle the temperature during different types of the day. It's replacing an old piece of equipment that consumes a lot of power with a newer piece of equipment that serves the same job function and just uses less power. So that's where we're going to focus today, on energy efficiency to really reduce the energy consumption. This reduction is the first step before other programs happen, such as distributed energy resources, which deals with resiliency and efficiencies. It also is a first step before renewable energy, especially if you think of a house, you want to reduce the amount of energy being used before you size the solar system that's needed. So let's dive deeper into energy efficiency. It can be very easy. Here are some examples. The left two pictures are light bulbs. The one to the left, I'm sure many of you know, is the old incandescent light bulb. It consumes 90% more energy, according to Energy Star, than the one that's circled in yellow, which is an LED light bulb. It also has much less maintenance needed. It lasts 35 to 50 times longer, again, according to Energy Star. So you think of this from two angles, that 90% less energy use definitely is related to lower bills as well and lower energy needs from the grid, but also it's less maintenance. Personally, I love having one less thing to buy on my list. And I know many businesses that would rather not be putting staff up on cherry pickers to change lights as well. So there are savings in different areas here when we talk about energy efficiency. To the right is an example of thermostats. You have a traditional thermostat versus a smart thermostat. The smart thermostat cycling the temperature, for example, at night in the winter, having it be rather cold in your home because you're tucked under your blankets and don't even notice that the temperature is that low. And it's the idea of why heat a space if it's not being actively used. So again, it's just making that one-time choice that affects the future and could also be very complex. A complex example is a manufacturing facility. It not only has lighting and thermostats, but it also has heating, ventilation, air conditioning, has pumps, fans, maybe it has walk-in freezers or processing equipment and controls, along with many other things that a manufacturing facility may need. And so you think about all of those different pieces and what a large impact they can make on that building sector. Using less energy is of course good for the environment, but we find that customers also like to see their bills going down. There are other benefits as well. Less emissions from power plants equals better health conditions. Supporting these energy efficient projects allows energy efficiency to be equitable, not just for those who can afford to build their own energy efficient home, but also for apartment renters. Growing the energy efficiency industry in New Jersey will grow the job market, which is why we have several of you focusing on workforce development. Using energy efficient equipment means you're using less energy, so your utility bill goes down. It doesn't hurt for me to point that out a second time. Long-term comfort increases. I don't have to sit here right now presenting to you under a hot, inefficient light bulb, and I'm not feeling the breeze coming in my window. I was about to say cold breeze, but it's nice today. The breeze coming in my window because I have an efficient office space. We will show some cost examples in a few slides where you will see how simple upgrades can make a large impact and save substantial money for homeowners and businesses. So now that you all know what energy efficiency is and why it is good, let's talk about where the funding comes from to incentivize energy efficient equipment. You will hear us refer to the Board of Public Utilities as the BPU. It's the state agency that oversees and regulates utilities, which include critical services, not only natural gas and electricity, but also water, telecommunications, and cable television. You certainly heard the term BPU mentioned several times on the introductions, as well as with Crystal and Stacy. When we refer to the utility companies, we will be referring to just natural gas and electric utility companies that are investor owned. So I'll make that clarification. New Jersey's clean energy program is administered by that New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. They have an Office of Clean Energy that was established back in 2003. By 2007, the office moved the energy efficiency programs from the utilities to their clean energy programs that are in place today. And they contracted a program administrator to manage the residential and commercial industrial energy efficiency programs. TRC, the company that I work for, is the current program administrator. The Clean Energy Program is funded by the Societal Benefits Charge, which is one of the additional charges on the utility bill of investor-owned utility customers. These include JCP&L, Rockland Electric, Atlantic City Electric, PSE&G, Elizabethtown Gas, New Jersey Natural Gas, and South Jersey Gas. The energy efficiency programs discussed here are applicable only to the people who pay into the societal benefits charge and therefore having a utility bill with one of those utility companies. So essentially, those of us who are paying into those investor-owned utilities, we are paying into that societal benefits charge. And then through these clean energy programs, we are receiving some of those funds back to us for making energy efficient choices. The clean energy program, it is focused on helping to move everyone in New Jersey towards a more energy efficient, renewable, and clean energy technologies. You know, as we said, that starts with education and behavioral change, and it all leads to that final goal of the governors of 100% clean energy by 2050. We have a new member of the Clean Energy Program, Chloe, who has joined us a little over a year ago. And so many of you may have seen Chloe make appearances. She has been on TV, she's been online, print and radio ads. So I'm going to share this clip for you so you can see Chloe as well.
It's time to save, New Jersey. New Jersey's Clean Energy Program is your guide to saving hundreds, even thousands in rebates and incentives. We're lighting the way to a clean energy future. Join in at njcleanenergy.com or call 866-NJ-SMART.
So now that you know what energy efficiency is, you know where the funding for energy efficient programs comes from as well. But how does the money get to residents and businesses? So this is where you're going to hear the word incentive used a lot with us at the Clean Energy Program. Every program is run very differently. So please understand that this infographic is on a very general process level. Essentially, the first step is that there has to be a choice to use and purchase more energy efficient equipment. I say that there's this choice because it really is a conscious choice. Energy efficient equipment tends to cost more out of pocket. It's a newer technology. And the owner needs to understand that purchasing this at a higher upfront cost will have more benefits down the line for them that are going to come into play in their decision making. So they choose this equipment, and then there's some sort of an application process depending on the program. So they submit an application to the Clean Energy Program, make it through the process, and receive their incentive. That incentive funding is what is there to offset that cost for them. It's saying we understand that upfront cost was higher, so here's an incentive to help you shave down that initial burden of purchasing that equipment. Once the customer uses the equipment, they're then using less energy than they would normally be using. So what they're seeing are lower utility bills, healthier air, and climate as well. So the saving is really in two parts. They're saving by having a financial incentive when they purchase the equipment or shortly thereafter to offset that purchase price. And then the second part of it is the ongoing lower utility bill that they're going to continue to see while they use that equipment over the lifetime of the equipment. So let's talk about the volume of these incentives. Last year alone, there were only over 141,000 applications processed. In that same year, over $145 million was paid to residents, contractors, and businesses just for these incentives that we're talking about. Again, this is just for the past fiscal year. From an environmental standpoint, the carbon dioxide eliminated by these incentives was the same as removing 159,000 cars off the road for an entire year. It was the same as planting 12 million trees. And of course, it was avoiding a substantial amount of greenhouse gases that would have been added to our environment. The current list of programs offered by the Clean Energy Program in general are in 5 categories. The first is renewable energy. This includes offshore wind. It also includes paid certificates for producing solar power and community solar program that makes solar accessible even to apartment dwellers. There's specialized energy efficiency initiatives that are focused on encouraging efficiency through coordination with communities, developing new technologies, and workforce development. Going over a little further to the right, to the orange box, is the distributed energy resources. These are programs that allow for resiliency away from the traditional infrastructure. The range includes electric vehicles all the way to technologies that can keep critical facilities open during large power outages like Superstorm Sandy. Lastly, the energy efficiency programs that are circled here, they address residents and what we refer to as C&I. That's actually a term, commercial and industrial. It covers businesses, local government, manufacturing, large multifamily, agriculture, and other commercial and industrial businesses, as well as nonprofits. There are too many programs in energy efficiency to list them all here in these buckets, but they include a range from energy assessments and in-depth building audits, as well as incentive programs for single equipment purchases and whole building upgrades for either new construction projects, renovations, or equipment upgrades to homes and businesses. This is where the outreach team we work with often is presenting on many of these and working with different groups like yours, community groups, even street fairs, to have an awareness to the different groups that are involved. Equity is addressed in a slightly different way for businesses than it is for residents. I'm going to use the term businesses with an asterisk going forward for our commercial and industrial sector, so we aren't making you learn too many new terms in one afternoon. Just keep in mind that we're referring to more than just businesses. For our commercial and industrial sector that includes businesses, we have had a two-prong approach since about July 2019. The first was enhanced incentives. And these enhanced incentives have been eligible since this time to facilities that are located in either an urban enterprise zone or opportunity zone. These are highlighted on the map in either orange or blue. The enhanced incentives are also offered to facilities, multifamily facilities designated as affordable housing. So what an enhanced incentive is they get the normal incentive, but they also get what we call the enhancement, extra funding, just because they're in one of these zones or affordable housing. The amount varies based on our programs. However, one of our programs does so much as doubling the incentive value that they receive just if they fit into one of these qualifications. The second prong that we've been doing around equity is focused outreach. Our outreach team has been using data and research to drive targeted campaigns by outreach account managers in regions such as these urban enterprise zones and opportunity zones to target sectors such as affordable housing, and within communities with a specialized coordination with these community leaders and minority organizations. I have a few examples for you. Here's a smaller business that went through our comprehensive program, Direct Install. It is an autism services facility. They did a combination of lighting and HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning upgrades. The total project, for a company like this, it's substantial. It was $96,000. The incentives that they got were rather sizable, at about $67,000. But then something that people often don't think about is the annual savings. How much money are they going to save on their utility bill because they switched out this equipment? So in this case, it was an existing building that just switched old equipment with newer, more energy efficient equipment. And once that was installed, they are then going to start saving $14,000 a year. So when we run that through our calculations of how much they had to pay for this upgraded equipment and the annual savings on their utility bill, the payback period is only lightly over 2 years. So after that 2 years, they've planned ahead knowing that their maintenance costs, which are not even included in this calculation, are going to be lower, having to maintain the older equipment that they had. But also after 2 years, they have $14,000 additional in their budget that they don't have to allocate to the utility bill anymore. Another small business example here is a house of worship. I think we all know how influential they are in different communities. This particular house of worship, they made some lighting upgrades and also water conservation. Water conservation in this case is as simple as adding what we call faucet aerators so that when people go to wash their hands, less water comes out because they can wash their hands with less water. And less water coming out means less hot water is needed to heat the boilers. Some houses of worship have homeless shelters or different facilities that they offer. So they're also looking at low flow shower heads, other things like that, that affect the utility bills in the end. For this house of worship, it was $9,000, which again is a big amount for them. They received a sizable incentive. They have their annual savings. Their payback period was under a year. And this is because this was a lighting heavy project, but especially for the house of worship, within less than a year, for them to be able to have an extra $3,000 annual savings in their budget was very helpful for them. We have an example here of a county college that, as you see, it looks like a rather new, freshly upgraded building. However, their exterior lighting needed to be upgraded. They realized they just had inefficient lighting, and just making that one choice for that one type of lighting had substantial savings. Lighting has come down drastically in price, so their payback period was extremely short for this particular project, and it has a huge impact on their annual savings, where they're saving over $6,000 a year, and that savings is being seen right away. So these are just a couple examples of some of the projects that are happening, especially smaller ones and more integrated with the community, to get a feel for what's happening and what those prices actually are when we talk about incentives. So like the programs we just spoke about, the residential programs also cover many parts of a building, except for a home. So shown here are a few. There's insulation, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, appliances such as washers, dryers, refrigerators, dehumidifiers. There's lighting, shower heads, smart thermostats, and more. Most of you are likely thinking that's nice for the people who can afford to even think about this, let alone coordinate and pay for all these upgrades. So that's where the Comfort Partners program comes in. It has been co-managed between New Jersey's Clean Energy Program, the utility companies together. And that way they can connect homeowners at or below 250% of the poverty level with free energy efficient upgrades. Additionally, on top of the regular residential programs that are in place, there's something called a bonus incentive. And this bonus incentive is that the person's still receiving the normal incentive, the base incentive, plus they get this bonus on top. So this chart just shows what the bonuses are. And what qualifies them for a bonus is one of three factors. Each project can only receive one of these bonuses, but they do have to either live in an urban enterprise zone, be pre-qualified as low to moderate income, or be designated as affordable housing facility. So we have different programs listed here, and I'm not going to go through all the details of all the programs, but you'll see that the different programs offer different levels of rebates here. We do have a separate presentation, actually several different, to just homeowners, just contractors, just businesses, that we do give as well. So we give these even to community groups. We have Community Action Agency one coming up. We're happy if anybody wants us to go into more in depth or talk about how to partner, even post-transition, pre-transition, with anything that you're interested in. We do have somebody here on a video, Peggy, and she went through the whole home program and was really kind enough to send us the video, even though it's COVID. She sent this over to us, which is great.
My name is Peggy Middaugh, and I recently had an energy assessment done with Clean Energy Program, and I'm here to tell you how impressed I was by the program. The contractors were very professional, the work was done very well, and as a result, my home is more comfortable, the airflow is better, and I decreased my energy bills by 50%. I really hope that everyone in New Jersey gets an audit by the Clean Energy Program.
We have here, contact information that's going to be at the very end of this presentation. If anybody has any of those really nuanced one-on-one requests, I'm happy to chat at that time. But we have general questions now, if anybody has questions.
Also, I would just like to mention that a lot of the trainings
that Elizabeth was just mentioning are available on the New Jersey Clean Energy Learning Center, which is www.njcelc.com.
And we'll have contact information at the end of this slide as well to reach out to us. We just are really here to make sure you understand the foundation that's been built. So as you all work on what does this next chapter look like, you know how to build from it.
Yeah, I just had a quick question on this, and we might get to this a little bit later, but I thought it might be just a useful conversation on just the interplay of the Comfort Partners program with the whole home retrofit program. I know one of the issues historically with Comfort Partners is there is just such great need. And obviously the housing stock that needs energy efficiency sometimes has, and not just sometimes, but a fair percentage of the time, would have issues with the building envelope. So, you know, I know this has been an issue the utilities have also cited before for the BPU. And the fact that not only issues with the building envelope, but just issues with building safety. And so these are issues that Isles and Andre, you know, work with intently, not only in Trenton, but across the state, of making sure that if you're going to do you know, air sealing in a house, that you also work to do lead remediation as well. So, you know, I just wanted to see, you know, if we're going to get to that in the future, that's great, but this might be a good point just to kind of talk about some of the challenges with Comfort Partners, and then the whole home retrofit program as a solution to kind of deal with some of those existing issues.
Thank you, Doug. And I believe Stacy and Crystal that those are going to be part of next step conversations. Is that correct?
Yes. When we get to the working groups portion, we'll kind of discuss what the working groups are going to be doing top level. And in the equity working group, there is a Comfort Partners subcommittee, and we will have representation from the actual Comfort Partners program, from the utility side, to kind of discuss these nuances about barriers that exist between some of the programs, just to support the individuals, the customers that need these services, but may live in housing stock that kind of goes outside the parameters of what Comfort Partners can do and what options are on the table for us. So that's something that we'll get into, I believe, in the individualized working groups. But it's good to flag as for people to have thought, to start thinking about this. And Stacey, do you have anything to add?
No, that's great. I think you touched on it all.
Thanks, Stacey, and thanks, Crystal. I figured I was jumping the gun, but glad to know that's coming.
I'll bet.
Does Evelyn have her hand raised?
She does.
Yeah. Thanks. Perhaps not for today, but maybe it's going to come up when we move into the equity work group. But I was just wondering if you will be able to give us an update on, and I've been away from it for a while, but on the board's cost benefit analysis for energy efficiency programs. You know, we certainly think that those issues are directly related to questions around equity in terms of who's paying for programs and whether or not they're paying for programs that they can use. Just to, along with that, that work is related to and perhaps comes out of the statute requiring a market analysis that to demonstrate how programs are being used and by whom. So I just really wanted to flag that.
That'll be tackled by the individual working groups. So what we're trying to accomplish today is just big picture items for some of the participants that don't have the same interaction with this process as some of the other partners. But those kind of nuanced questions that you're bringing up and what Doug is bringing up, those are things that are going to be dived into when we break into our individual working groups. So things like cost analysis, things about equity metrics, gaps and barriers in current programs and future programs or potential future programs, are all things that this working group is going to be kind of charged to discuss and come up with recommendations for.
Okay, great. I just wanted to ask and see if that is part of the agenda. So good.
Yes. Yeah. So at this time, we're just looking for, does anyone have any questions broadly about what Elizabeth went through in terms of energy efficiency? Because we're gonna have a couple of question and answer periods. So you guys don't have to get all your questions out right now. We're gonna have a couple opportunities to field questions. So I guess just one more time, anyone just have any general questions about energy efficiency broadly and what the state has been doing? And hearing none, I think we move on.
All right, thank you.
All right, so the next section we're going to be talking about what is this energy efficiency transition that we have been referring to. You know, the state of New Jersey has been administering the bulk of EE programs, while some of the utility companies have been offering programs as well. But the Clean Energy Act of 2018 was kind of a game changer for us. And it says that, you know, it laid out a bunch of, you know, more than one clean energy strategy, but it addressed energy efficiency in particular and laid out some ambitious goals for energy efficiency in the state, saying that as a state, we need to achieve at least 2% reduction of customers' electricity use over the next 5 years, and at least 0.75% of natural gas consumption by customers over the next 5 years in each utility territory. So we will be working to achieve those goals together between the state programs and the utility programs. But as part of this process, we had to determine who was going to be offering these programs, which will be offered by the state, which will be offered by the utility companies. And so let's go to the next slide. So the Clean Energy Act was really geared towards addressing climate change in New Jersey, seeing what we can do on a state level. And so that was sort of the background for the Clean Energy Act. The next slide. There are a lot of advantages that the utility companies have with their customers and with, you know, in terms of existing relationships, being able to offer low or no cost financing, turning around payments, and some of the other features listed here. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, here's the state mandate on both the electric and gas sides. Next slide. Here is how we envision that the energy savings goals will be met between the state programs and the utility programs over the next 5 years. So the Clean Energy Act said at least 2%, but we're aiming for a bit higher based on the market potential study that was performed a few years ago, and it's above 1% on the gas side. These targets for 4 years 4 and 5, just want to note, are preliminary. The first cycle of energy efficiency programs each cycle of energy programs is 3 years. And so after the first 3 years are completed, there will be a triennial review process where we will evaluate everything, including what the goal should be and other sort of aspects of program design and delivery. After the Clean Energy Act was enacted into law, the BPU undertook a pretty robust stakeholder process, and I think many of you were part of that process, and I want to thank you for your input. So we had a lot of meetings and workshops to get input on what the framework of energy efficiency should look like, and what should the requirements be, and other aspects of the transition. And so after reviewing all of the comments and recommendations, the board adopted an energy efficiency framework in June of 2020 that laid out all the requirements for energy efficiency programs. Next slide. And so there are certain parameters within the board order that are pretty much set. And also I should mention that they're also, in terms of what's in scope and what's out of scope for the working groups, there are, and I'll be getting into this in a little bit in this section, utility program proposals that the board is currently reviewing. And to the extent the board does approve those proposals, those parameters will also be set. But there are going to be areas where we still need to work on some details, and that is the focus of the working groups. Next slide. So here are the program areas staying with the state: new construction, and then some existing programs such as large energy users, combined heat and power, the local government energy audits program, and the energy savings improvement program. And then with the utilities will primarily be serving existing buildings in all sectors, as well as offering incentives for products, incentives and programs for products. There'll be some new aspects or features offered by the utilities, including a dedicated multifamily program, more financing options, and a quick home energy checkup. And Comfort Partners will be continued to be co-managed by the utilities and the state. Here, this slide shows the utility territories for electric companies on the left and gas companies on the right. As part of the EE framework, we have really, one of our goals is to ensure the delivery of consistent programs statewide so that customers throughout the state can have a consistent experience and offerings in terms of energy efficiency. So in terms of when they will transition, it's okay, go to the next slide. PSENG's, and both their electric and gas proposals were approved by the board in September of last year. And at the same time, the other utility companies submitted their program proposals. Those, the board has been reviewing those proposals along with Rate Council. The board approved New Jersey Natural's proposal earlier this month, at the beginning of the month. And we are mandated by the Clean Energy Act to make decisions on all of the proposals by May 1st. So with the anticipation that all of the programs will have launched by July 1st of this year. PSENG, since they were approved earlier, will be beginning some of their programs as early as April. The next few slides just show where we have been putting information about the energy transition. So we have a dedicated energy transition webpage that includes frequently asked questions. And as we get more feedback about this page, we'll be adding more questions that are asked by customers or contractors or any other stakeholders. Any questions on the energy efficiency transition? Because the next section we'll be getting into the working groups and how the working groups fit into all of this. Okay, maybe we move on then.
Thanks, Stacey. So working groups. So as part of the June 2020 board order, working groups were identified as being a necessary part of the transition. So the 4 working groups identified as listed on this slide are Workforce Development Working Group, Equity Working Group with the Comfort Partners Subcommittee and Multifamily Subcommittee, Evaluation, Measurement, and Verification Working Group, also known as EMNV, that also has an Energy Codes and Standards Subcommittee, as well as a Marketing Working Group. So those of you who are on right now are either in workforce development, equity, or both. The board order also defined participants for each one of these working groups. So you may be wondering, well, why am I not on marketing or why am I not on EM&V? It's not because we don't want you there. It's because we are following the directions as listed in the board order. The good news is we will be having these public monthly stakeholder meetings where we'll be able to hear out what the other working groups are discussing along with the public. Feedback can be shared. Also in a less formal manner, board staff, myself, Stacy, will be kind of all over the place in each of the working groups. So there will be a flow of information going in between. So do not feel that just because you're in workforce equity, you're completely siloed out. There will be times of intersection so you can understand what the other groups are working on and provide feedback. Because all of these working groups ultimately have to work together to get us to where we need and hope these programs will go. Next slide. So the Workforce Development Working Group, its main task is to develop recommendations for establishing coordinated and collaborative workforce development and training pathways across the state, with a focus on providing economic opportunities for underrepresented, representative and socially economically disadvantaged individuals. So the scope of the Workforce Development Group is to really create a pipeline of sorts to get individuals into the energy efficiency technology space, and obviously have a focus and perhaps center communities that are overburdened or and low and moderate income, really trying to pull in participation and reach people who may not have had the same access to these opportunities. So the Workforce Development Working Group will actually be tasked with trying to figure that out. How do we come up with that statewide? What utilities play a role in that, and what will be their responsibility? What will be the state's responsibility? That's why we have such a diverse group of partners from different state agencies, obviously including the board, all the way to non-governmental organizations, and different kind of representatives from different spheres of life, because we thought it was really important that we get a lot of different input to understand what the barriers to entry are to getting individuals access to this workforce development framework or pipeline that we would develop. So really excited about that, because if we can provide not just jobs, but careers, especially for communities that have been otherwise neglected or left behind or disenfranchised, it can be transformative, and it can build and bring about careers and major changes that can span generations. So it's really important work that the Workforce Development Working Group will be tasked with. Next slide. So the Equity Working Group will be developing recommendations, I guess, to Evelyn's point about equity metrics. How do we define what is equitable? How do we define what is success and what is failure when we talk about accessibility to different communities, especially communities, as I mentioned before, that may be represented of a vulnerable population or an overburdened communities? How do we define whether or not these programs are doing what they need to do in providing access to these communities? It's also, checking out approaches of energy efficiency and peak demand reduction programs. So it touches a little bit on the things that Elizabeth spoke on what behavioral stuff, what policies, what programs, what helps energy efficiency be successful across the board for all people. Additionally, the Equity Working Group will be working with the Supplier Diversity Development Council to encourage supplier diversity. So I think this is really important to flag, because this kind of gets, I don't want to say confused, but it definitely runs parallel with some of the work that the Workforce Development Group is doing when we're talking about building a pipeline and things like education and training and apprenticeships. But what we're doing in the Equity Working Group side of things is we're trying to understand and make sure that procurement processes are equitable, that we have access to diverse contractors and subcontractors. So we're going to be collaborating to make recommendations about how we ensure supplier diversity in the energy efficiency space. And additionally, as you can see there, encourage contractor coaching, mentoring of diverse enterprises, because it's one thing to kind of bring in diverse subcontractors or women, minority or veteran-owned businesses, but what are we doing to make sure that they are sustained and they are kept in this world and supported and empowered? So it's not just, oh, we just did a thing, it's done, but it's continued change and continued growth and continued diversity and equity. And in the equity working groups, we have the Comfort Partners Subcommittee. So in that subcommittee, it's really a subcommittee of honestly just one person. It is the representative of Comfort Partners to come and kind of discuss what Comfort Partners does and take back feedback to the co-managed working group to making sure that Comfort Partners is doing what it needs to do, as it is the cornerstone of it's the cornerstone of our low income energy efficiency work. There is also going to be a multifamily subcommittee, which is going to design and manage delivery in the multifamily sector with goals of equitable access and adequate program support. And that's going to be a really interesting subcommittee, because when we talk about multifamily homes, that presents its own set of challenges when we're trying to talk about energy efficiency. So the equity working group, kind of bigger picture, the scope is a little bit larger. We're thinking about equity metrics. How do we decide if this is successful? How do we decide if the program is being accessible to the people we need to be and making the necessary changes? As well as how do we ensure that procurement processes and subcontractors and contractors are diverse, and that the diverse contractors or subcontractors that are working in the state have the same bite of the apple as everybody else. So next slide, please. Okay, so these are just kind of examples of equity for residents. So this is just an example of kind of what is existing now and what kind of is constituting as equity for our residents. When I say residents, I mean like individual homeowners or renters, not businesses. So we have things like community solar, we have Comfort Partners, we have free LED bulbs for distribution at our food banks and pantries. We have bonus incentives for energy efficiency programs. We have the winter termination program, which prevents utility turnoffs for qualifying customers, and the PAGE program, also known PAGE, Payment Assistance for Gas and Electric. So this gives you a sense of what the universe is right now in terms of what is energy efficiency or clean energy equity for residents currently, at least in this fiscal year. Next slide, please. So looking forward, fiscal year 2021, well, I guess current, you know, we have things like the Moderate Income Weatherization Program, free conservation kits, special financing terms for energy efficiency program for low and moderate income customers. That's what Elizabeth showed earlier. Targeted advice, the QHEC program, also known as the Quick Home Energy Checkup. So these are the programs that are currently in operation and existing. So this kind of gives you a sense of this is what the universe looks like. This is what we can play around with, and we can even go and explore things beyond that. But this shows, this is to help show folks what is available now. Next slide. And I won't go too much into detail about this because I think Elizabeth handled it really well earlier when she was talking about the energy efficiency programs. But when we're talking about equity can you go back? We go equity for businesses, you know, there's enhanced incentives and special opportunities for urban enterprise zone and opportunity zone. And, you know, those are things that we can also continue to discuss. So next slide, thanks. So working group structure. So there are going to be actual working groups. So the big stakeholder kickoff is on the 31st of this month, so next week. And that's going to be kind of a, as I said, it's going to be a kickoff. We're going to introduce it. We're going to kick things off with a bang. And then the work really, really begins. So between now and next week, you all are likely going to receive an email or two from me kind of pointing out the planned times for us to meet. Just flagging, I'm looking at Mondays and Wednesdays for equity or workforce development. But the idea is that we're going to be having working meetings every 1 to 2 weeks with the monthly public stakeholder meeting to report on the things that we've worked on in the interim week to week. So that is very daunting, understand. But this is a pace that we think is necessary because based on the timeline that Stacy rolled out, we really have a lot of work to do leading up until July 1st when most of all the programs start implementation. So we're going to be really working to develop kind of early recommendations. And Stacy will kind of talk about the activities on the second part of this slide, but this is where we're going. So you're going to be contacted by me. I'm going to set dates and they're going to be our working dates. So anticipate that the first working group meeting for equity and workforce, those 2 meetings will likely occur the week following the 31st. And there will be agendas, minutes, clear action items, and there will be support by staff, myself and my colleagues, as well as some utility support to kind of help hold things together and make sure things get organized. And I say me because, yay, you're going to be working with me. I will be your staff representative and charged with kind of facilitating the equity and workforce working group. So as I said on the onset of, this orientation, we're going to have opportunities to get to know each other better and work to complete this. And Stacy will be handling marketing and EM&V. But like I said, we'll probably be kind of showing up in each other's working groups, and we are here to be a resource as well as guide this process. So that being said, I will kick it off to Stacy to kind of explain the activities.
Thanks, Crystal. I'm getting a little bit of a feedback, I think. Oh, no, good. Okay, here we go. So the short-term focus for the working groups will be to develop recommendations in equity and workforce development. And the parameters of those recommendations will be laid out in the first working group meeting. That's sort of the internal meeting. We'll lay out what we think the priorities are for the next 3 months. Because as Crystal mentioned, we have some details that need to have some resolution by the time that July 1 rolls around. And so that will apply to this first triennial cycle of programs that last from 2021 to 2024. And then after the board receives the recommendations and takes action on them, then the scope of the working groups will be to look at longer term recommendations. And I think I didn't mention earlier on that, the board, I think as most of you know, but just to say it, is a quasi-judicial state entity. The board, any decision by the board is made by the 5 commissioners. Staff is here to support them, and the working groups will be providing those recommendations with staff to the board. But ultimately, we will be in an advisory or role to them as they consider the recommendations and then make decisions. As the working groups develop their recommendations, they will report out to the public and to other stakeholders at these monthly EE committee meetings, the first of which is next Wednesday. And just a reminder, Crystal will be reaching out, and so to make sure that you are registered for those if you're not already, or for the first 31st. We will just be introducing each of the working groups, a plan to lay out the scope of each working group, the same kind of slides that you just saw about what is what will the focus be for workforce development? What will the scope be for equity, as well as EM&B and marketing? And then subsequently after March 31st, these committee meetings will occur on the last Wednesday of each month. And we will be then really diving into the development of these recommendations and getting feedback from stakeholders about what those recommendations are looking like and what their feedback is. Finally, by before July 1st, we will deliver those recommendations to the board, as I mentioned, for potential adoption. Next slide, please. So any questions on working groups and next steps and sort of the goals and the expectations? And also in terms of any other information you think you might need or want before the March 31st meeting next week.
Stacey, I think I would also want to add, because I think this is important for, I think, our stakeholder participants to know. I know when you do stakeholder, you give all these recommendations. What does it mean? These programs are already happening. But I just also want to let our participants know that what's really special and kind of powerful about the way this process is going to work is that, as things develop and as recommendations come, we can go back and make changes, right? Like we can make recommendations to the utilities that can kind of change things as they come. So it is unique in that sense that, what we accomplish and what we do and what we recommend will really be kind of tangible in that way. And sorry to cut you off, Stacey. I'm sorry.
And I see that Elizabeth posted the link to register for the March 31st EE committee meeting in the chat. Yeah, and I guess I would just, to build on what Crystal said, there's sort of the short term and the longer term. There's some short term areas of need that we would like the working group to focus on that will apply to these the first 3 years of the programs. And then after that, the next opportunity for changes will be during the triennial review. So it's sort of an iterative process. We're really looking for these programs to evolve over time, to improve, and to learn from implementation to see what is working, what could be improved, how to make these programs as good as they can be.
And also for the working groups, I know, I mentioned that we're going to be probably working at a weekly or every other week pace, but we anticipate and we hope that subsequent to the summer, once things kind of get implemented and start moving, we can probably scale the frequency of meetings back as things are going on. So do not fear that, for 3 years, you're going to be at meeting with me every week. For some of you, twice a week. So I do want to let that be known. But that being said, are there any questions about anything at this point?
Okay, maybe move on to the next slide. These are just some resources for the group, a link to the Clean Energy Act and the Energy Master Plan and the EE framework order that we've been referring to. And here's again, the link to the transition webpage, the phone number for the call center, the NJC call center. This is where if customers or contractors have questions, they can call the call center or they can email the transition email address. There is a clean energy newsletter and a clean energy listserv for EE. So, even staff signs up for these. So if you're interested in making sure that you get all the relevant information about EE and clean energy, please do sign up for those. And Elizabeth, can you remind us if this slide deck will be available or Tara on the CELC website?
Yes, both the slide deck and the recording will both be available on the New Jersey Clean Energy Learning Center, but please allow at least a few days for us to edit before we're able to post. Thank you. Do we have any additional questions or comments?
I'm not seeing any, and we would be more than happy to give you, I guess, the remaining less than 15 minutes left. So I guess I'll just start off by saying thank you to everyone. Again, we recognize that everyone is coming to this stakeholder group with different pots of knowledge and different experiences with the BPU and energy efficiency in general. So we just thought this was a really important thing to do, just to level set, so we can just ensure that everyone is in a place that they can feel comfortable, know enough to really engage in these conversations and ask the questions that they need to ask, and feel really confident that they're being heard and listened to. So we just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you all for participating in this orientation. And we look forward to working with you and the great work that we're going to accomplish, because ultimately we're going to change people's lives. Energy efficiency, with one energy efficiency program at a time. So that being said, I do want to thank you, and I will be in contact with you, and I will pass it to Stacy.
I don't know if I can really top that. Just again, really appreciate being able to work with you all. We're very excited, and I think that it's going to be wonderful to hear everyone's perspectives on as we get into more detail on some of these areas of equity and workforce development. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Crystal or me.